In the early morning hours of September 20th, 2017, thousands of lives in Puerto Rico were changed forever. One of the strongest storms to hit the island in 85 years, Hurricane Maria plummeted through communities with wind speeds of 155 miles per hour. People lost their homes, their businesses, electricity was off for months, and wading through floodwaters became the norm. 1 year later, we take a look at the resiliency of these communities and their fight to take back what Mother Nature stole from them in a WUFT special, Life After Maria.
Good evening, I'm Dolores Hinckley.
And I'm Sofia Millar. WUFT TV traveled to Puerto Rico. While there, our reporters learned firsthand what folks on the island are doing to move forward and the challenges they still face.
Puerto Rico recently submitted a report to Congress stating it will take around $139 billion to fully recover from Hurricane Maria.
One of the most talked about difficulties were the widespread power outages. Hurricane Maria had damaged an already weak power grid. Nearly 11 months after the storm hit, Puerto Rican officials reported power had been restored. In El Yunque Forest, some people are still without power. WUFT's Grace King begins our coverage tonight with a man who did everything he could to keep the lights on.
For 11 months and 19 days, generator after generator powered Jose Saldaña's business in El Yunque National Forest.
Entre todos los gastos de generadores, diésel, aceite, filtro de aire, filtro de diésel, filtro de aceite, yo me he gastado $60,000.
Tonti, as his friends and family call him, lost power when Hurricane Irma weakened Puerto Rico's power grid in early September of last year. So when Maria barreled across the island just a few weeks later, Tonti realized his power wasn't coming back soon and that he needed to adjust to life without electricity.
Esta es mi luz de noche. La pongo a cargar por el día para en la noche tener luz.
According to a report from the government of Puerto Rico, 100% of electric customers lost power.
The power was off almost 10 months.
179 días.
And more than 25% of the island's decaying transmission line towers and poles were damaged, further delaying restoration efforts. The financial burden of keeping Tonti's business alive with only generators.
Todos los ahorros de mi vejez los he tenido que gastar.
Will take him years to recover from.
Que eso han sido parte del retiro que yo tenía para retirarme, pues ahora tengo que seguir trabajando porque nadie me da un incentivo de todo lo que yo he gastado.
A year later, Tonti's power is finally back on. Electricity is restored across the island, and a $22 billion plan is in the works to keep the lights on.
El gobernador de Puerto Rico está trabajando ahora para que de todo proyecto de ahora en adelante sea un proyecto resistente para que en un futuro, 2020, 2022, 2024, el sistema energético en Puerto Rico no sea tan vulnerable y sea mucho más resistente a lo que son los huracanes.
There needs to be an investment in that, but a lot of money is coming to Puerto Rico, and we're committed to investing in that effort.
An investment that will develop a more reliable power grid, creating a bright future from a dark past. Those 11 months following Hurricane Maria, Tonti hopes to never relive again.
No he tenido ayuda de nadie.
Grace King, WUFT News.
It took nearly a year for official death toll numbers to surface. Puerto Rico upped the toll after an independent report by George Washington University. The report estimates 2,975 deaths. That number far exceeds Puerto Rico's government original report of 64. Now, the big question, are they prepared if another storm were to hit?
The director of the State Emergency Management Agency of Puerto Rico, Carlos Acevedo, says Puerto Rico was not prepared for Maria.
El huracán María es el desastre más grande que ha ocurrido dentro de todos los Estados Unidos. Y Puerto Rico estaba preparado, los planes que habían en Puerto Rico hechos eran para que poder afrontar situaciones de emergencia de un huracán categoría 1, tal vez una categoría 2.
The director says the emergency plans had to be redone. No watt radios are being installed, which are radios that connect antenna to antenna and do not go through a repeater. Acevedo also says food and water have been distributed to the 78 municipalities in the island in case a hurricane hits them this hurricane season.
It's been a long road to recovery, especially in hard-hit areas like Utuado.
Noticias WUFT reporter Alexis Howard joins us now with how some families lost everything they had.
Sophia and Dolores, a lot of the people in the mountains were left with nothing after the storm. And now, 1 year later, many have begun rebuilding from the ground up. But for others, their day-to-day lives are far from going back to normal.
Yo creía que no venía para acá. Yo creía que no iba a pasar como lo que pasó, no creía.
Modesto Viruet was one of the dozens who lost it all when Hurricane Maria tore through the mountains of Utuado, Puerto Rico, the hardest hit town on the island. Modesto stayed in the small basement of his home with his wife until the storm passed. What he found when he was finally able to get out was complete destruction.
La casita se la llevó, la casa mía. Se llevó esta, se llevó aquella. La única que me dejó fue la del otro hijo mío, que ahí que estoy yo.
Modesto now lives in a small home with his son and family, which is still under construction. Like Modesto, much of Utuado is still in need of attention, but the needs of many goes far beyond the physical.
Casi a un año del huracán, nosotros estamos observando que la necesidad es más que de cosas tangibles, es emocional.
Gabriel Molina Medina, a farmer in the mountains of Utuado, is one with his own traumas. Gabriel lost it all during the hurricane, but faced an even greater adversity. He was diagnosed with throat cancer in the midst of the storm and had to undergo emergency surgery.
La operación le afectó el área de la garganta, que se puede ver visualmente. Él siempre utiliza el pañuelo porque como es agricultor, él brega con animales, gallinas, perros, cerdos en esa condición.
Gabriel is unable to verbally communicate with others, a detriment for someone who was always very happy and sociable. However, he is hopeful that he will obtain the help he needs.
Él es una persona joven y su deseo es seguir hacia adelante y con deseos de vida.
This resilience is evident in many of the people of Utuado and the rest of the island.
Las cosas del Señor son grandes.
Al final, este libro todavía no se ha cerrado. La última página todavía no está escrita. Y yo sé lo que dice la última página ya. Nosotros vencimos. Nosotros estaremos bien.
An end that can only be achieved with the hope and faith of a people who can overcome anything despite the obstacles of life.
2 weeks after visiting Puerto Rico, we were told Gabriel is now receiving the help he needs.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency is still under fire for its response to the disaster. In a recent report, the U.S. Government Accountability Office criticized FEMA's efforts, stating they had a slow response. GAO's Emergency Management Director, Christopher Curry, says FEMA was already stretched thin after dealing with 2 prior hurricanes and wildfires. FEMA says it has already issued recommendations for improvements. The agency is still receiving criticisms for denying many Puerto Ricans applications for housing assistance. Fear struck many of the families on the island as floodwaters began to rise during the storm.
WUFT's Grace King talked to a family who are on the verge of drowning in their Toa Baja home.
Maria Gonzalez watched Hurricane Maria tear across Puerto Rico from her mother's window. They lost power and thought the worst was over. Then,
y como al mediodía, yo estoy cocinando y de momento salen gritando, agua, agua. Y cuando miramos ya el agua no llegaba a la rodilla.
El agua llegó aproximadamente como 6 o 7 pies dentro de esta casa.
Torrential rain from the hurricane forced government officials to open the floodgates of La Plata Lake Dam in Toa Alta.
Soltaron las represas, abrieron todas las compuertas por miedo a que se rompieran, entonces iba a ser una catástrofe. Abrieron la represa y toda esa agua vino a pasar aquí. Nosotros no sabíamos nada de eso, nosotros no teníamos comunicación, no había celulares, no había radio, no había televisión.
So when the water began rising without warning,
el sistema de comunicaciones en Puerto Rico colapsó un 100%. Ningún municipio tenía comunicación.
Residents panicked.
Everybody tried to get out of it. It's like they didn't tell us on time. Because if they would have told us on time, we would have get out of here.
Maria worried her bedridden mother might drown, but family members like her cousin Javier and other neighbors stepped in to help.
Una casa aquí atrás, que es de alto. El muchacho es bien buena gente. Dijo, vénganse para acá y llevamos a mami. Entre todos y soltaron la cama y nos la llevamos.
Maria and Victor spent the night at their neighbors, uncertain if their son had survived the flooding.
Cuando él llegó ahí, que yo lo vi, y lo tiramos a llorar. Él decía, mami, yo lloraba por la noche pensando en ustedes.
Though thankful they still had each other, the rising water took everything else. All their possessions destroyed.
Pasamos 2 noches sentados en una silla. 2 noches que no podíamos dormir porque en la casa donde nos quedamos no había cama, no estaba preparado para eso, no había ni baño.
Maria and Victor got help from friends, family, and FEMA to help rebuild and replace, but nothing is the same.
Bien bonito. De la muñeca esa Sofía.
Fear of another flood still lingers in their minds.
You know how many people almost drowned? And how many people, I know how many people died? You know, we saw it over here. And we lived that, you know. I cried like for months.
Tears that have turned into a plan of action.
Lo que sí te puedo asegurar es que si en cuanto anuncie un huracán, yo no me voy a quedar aquí. La vida mía, otra vez como pasó esta vez, no la voy a arriesgar ni por nada del mundo.
Grace King, WUFT News.
Despite it being a year after Maria, blue tarps are still very common on the island. Many people in Puerto Rico lack a roof over their homes. Governor Ricardo Rosselló says he's working with his team to solve this problem.
We still have about 60,000 people that don't have rooftops, and that's just no way to live. My expectation is that we should be getting the drawdowns for the CDBG funding, which is $1.5 billion. About 70% of that goes to housing needs. So hopefully where other efforts have failed, getting access to this funding can enable us to rebuild quickly those homes.
Several people on the island may never get the help they need.
Noticias WUFT's Claudia Perez Brito tells us why the lack of property titles are to blame.
La noche. Eso no se puede describir. Mira, que me da hasta frío todavía.
Pablo Soto's small home is nestled between 2 valleys in the mountains of Yabucoa, the city where the eye of Hurricane Maria made landfall.
It was precisely in this very room where Pablo Soto and his wife found refuge during Hurricane Maria.
No era fácil. Todo por todos lados baratado. No quedaba nada más que ese esqueleto.
And almost a year later, Soto still has a blue tarp over part of his roof.
Pues la ayudita que me dio FEMA, pues como les dije, no me da. Tengo que tumbar la casa completa. Apelé. No cualifiqué porque yo no tengo escritura de esto aquí. Porque esto era de mi abuelo, pero mi abuelo nunca tuvo escritura.
Soto not having a property title to his home is an impediment thousands of Puerto Ricans have faced following the hurricane. Many people inherited homes from family members who had no property title to begin with, which is a requirement by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, known as FEMA, in order to assist in rebuilding their homes. Soto is not alone in feeling like he's received little to no help. Carmen Cruz Gonzalez is 81 and was alone the night of the hurricane.
Bueno, ahí está la nena, ahí está, mira, se me dañó la nevera, la estufa, ya la cogimos.
Gonzalez spent 5 months without electricity following the storm, and she continues to wait for her home's final repairs to be completed, while Soto is still waiting for a proper roof. In the meantime, he and his wife are renting a neighboring home.
No es fácil. La mujer lo único que me dice, bueno, pa, si viene otro huracán, ¿qué vamos a hacer? Y yo, si viene otro huracán, nos quedamos aquí. Mientras se pueda, pagamos la renta de la casa. Y allá abajo. Pues allá abajo lo que el otro dejó, pues se lo llevará. Pues yo no puedo hacer más nada.
Claudia Perez Brito, WUFT News.
For those who were denied federal government assistance, help came in another way. Grace King tells us how a nonprofit organization stepped in to help one of their own.
A work in progress 11 months after the storm.
Está todo caído.
Maria's high winds took nearly everything from Gregoria Delgado.
Lo único que pude sacar fue la estufa y la lavadora. La nevera se dañó, el juego comedor se rompió, que todavía los cristales están por ahí. y los muebles se dañaron porque eran de tela.
She lives by herself in the mountains of Trujillo Alto.
Y según lloré la noche de María, así lloraba todos los días, todos los días, todos los días.
Crying because she thought she couldn't get help.
Que nosotros no tenemos escritura de esto aquí. Esto no tiene escritura, aquí no hay de nadie.
She's not alone. The Puerto Rico Builders Association estimates hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans don't have proper documentation for their homes. That makes federal assistance nearly impossible to get.
We don't have all of the properties fully registered, and therefore we don't have visibility towards them. So we're getting funding now to help identify those areas and to help them get their title.
Delgado is considered lucky. She got a couple $1,000s from FEMA anyway. Plus,
Doña Goya, como estaba con urgencia, una casa nos cancelaron en un lugar porque habían unos problemas. Entonces decidimos darle esa oportunidad a ella para que resolviera, se da cuenta. Nosotros llevamos aquí casi 2 semanas y pico.
a church group is helping rebuild her home for free.
Gracias a Dios aparecieron ellos y ya me tienen casi y de volver a mudarme a mi casa.
Others aren't as fortunate.
Hay mucha gente que tiene necesidad, hay unos problemas emocionales. El número 1 es que se te llevó la casa y número 2 es que estás solo. Es difícil.
The last 11 months have indeed been hard for Delgado, but she says she's managed to survive because of her belief in God.
Es todo lo que le pido a Dios, que pueda salir bien y que pueda regresar otro viaje de nuevo a mi casa, con salud.
Grace King, WUFT News.
Up next, WUFT sits down with the governor of Puerto Rico.
I assume responsibility to make sure that all of the needs of the people of Puerto Rico are met.
Plus, this business owner's daily struggle to choose whether to eat or pay the bills. After facing the single biggest hurricane catastrophe in U.S. history, Governor Ricardo Rosselló called for urgent U.S. aid. Maria destroyed the already fragile power grid and left the island in darkness. The island was left in total devastation with a need for supplies and clean water. Less than 24 hours after Maria passing, Rosselló called New York Governor Andrew Cuomo for recovery efforts. Within days, the governor said the Trump administration was complying a quick and timely matter to the island's petition. Already in bankruptcy, a week later, Rosselló asked the Treasury and Federal Reserve for loans to rebuild.
Nearly a year after Maria, Governor Ricardo Rosselló sat down with Grace King to talk about the island's current status in recovery.
I sat down with Governor Ricardo Rosselló and started off by asking how much responsibility he takes for the ongoing issues the island is facing after Hurricane Maria.
Well, I am the governor. I assume responsibility, and it's my job to make sure that all of the needs of the people of Puerto Rico are met. It's my job, and that's why I am fully committed that, notwithstanding all of the obstacles and the challenges, to make this rebuild one that is that really puts Puerto Rico, in a very positive position.
How are the recovery efforts going?
It's been a long recovery. Ever since the storm came, there were 3 parallel tracks that I was considering working through. First one was the immediate emergency response, of course, making sure people were safe, had food, could survive the roughest part of the storm. The second part has been the recovery. Of course, schools are working and so forth. Business is back on its feet. Tourism is even higher than it was before the storm. So now the third track is the rebuild, which is the one we should be getting started on now, and that's the one I'm really optimistic about.
How confident are you that the changes you make will be sufficient in case another storm like Maria were to hit?
Well, they have to be, right? And that's why we wanted to be a blank canvas. Whether it's this year or next year or in 5 years or 10 years, another storm is likely to hit. So we better be very resilient about it. And what we're doing is we're incorporating the concept of innovation, broad concept of innovation across the board in everything. We were really not prepared for a Category 5 or Category 4 hurricanes. Much more a Category one or two hurricanes. So our effort right now is to plan for what we conceive as the worst case scenario so that we can respond in kind. So I am confident we'll get significantly much better and we'll be prepared for this level. But again, hopefully weather patterns don't get much worse.
We've been to Jabacoa, Utuado, Trujillo Alto, Vega Baja, among other places, and we've seen people who are still suffering and don't have basic necessities. What's your message to them?
It's very frustrating for me. I mean, we've been trying to reach everybody. We've been bogged down by inexplicable bureaucracy in some fronts on the federal level, and bureaucracy knows no pain. So what I'm committed in doing, and what we work 24 hours a day on doing, is trying to identify all of the folks that are still on dire need. As I mentioned, there are some things that are almost completely back to normal, or even better than normal now. But there are some other things that are still significantly delayed, such as rooftops. We still have about 60,000 people that don't have rooftops, and that's just no way to live.
What has this experience and process taught you about the people living on the island?
There's been many challenges, but the thing that I'm proudest of is the resolve and resiliency and heart of the people of Puerto Rico.
Business owners in Old San Juan keep their faith in tourism. Things have not been the same since Hurricane Maria.
Many people come here because love the people, love the island, love our culture, love everything, and we can do better.
Plus, the stray animal issue in the island has only worsened since Hurricane Maria.
Puerto Rico has faced a scary animal problem before Hurricane Maria even hit. However, since the hurricane, the issue has worsened.
Noticias WUFT's Claudia Perez Brito is here to tell us why the problem has continued to evolve.
Animals are something we're accustomed to seeing either in zoos, on farms, or in our homes. We don't think of them as roaming the streets on their own, but in Puerto Rico, that's exactly the reality.
Walking down a street in a Puerto Rican neighborhood, you might stumble upon a piglet and its mother rummaging through trash. It seems unusual, but for residents, it's normal seeing pigs, dogs, cats, and in some places, even horses on the streets. Puerto Rico has always dealt with the stray animal crisis, but Hurricane Maria created a major exodus, which in return intensified the animal abandonment problem.
Después de la tormenta se agravó la situación.
Ana Victoria Pardo has dedicated almost 20 years of her life to feeding stray dogs in Vega Baja. Every day, she drives out to different locations to leave them food and water. Her work isn't applauded by some, but her response is that if she doesn't feed them, who will? Puerto Rico's government, in conjunction with the Humane Society of the United States, addressed this large-scale issue by beginning the Spay-a-thon for Puerto Rico initiative this year, in hopes of sterilizing 20,000 animals in low-income neighborhoods. But despite these efforts, Pardo believes more should be done.
Primero, una esterilización en masa. Primero. Y segundo, pues las leyes más fuertes, multar a la gente, porque si no, la gente no les importa. La gente sigue tirando los animales. Enfermos, no les importa que estén enfermos, los tiran.
Claribel Pizarro is the executive assistant in charge of volunteer and educational programs at the Humane Society in Puerto Rico. She says that after the hurricane, the amount of dogs they began receiving increased, while adoptions have gone down.
You see someone that leaves tomorrow the island and bring their dog or their cat here today, you have to keep it. You have to take it because I am leaving tomorrow. Why? Why I have that responsibility? I don't have it. You have it because it's yours.
The Humane Society is a no-kill shelter, so when they reach their limit of 100 animals, they can't accept any more. But that doesn't stop some people from releasing their animals to fend for themselves, or tying them to the front of the building. When the latter occurs, they are forced to take them in. Pizarro says that educating people is crucial in order to help alleviate the problem, but it's also the hardest part of their job.
It seems that you never get that thinking to the people. It's a matter of feeling, of thinking, of values. I don't know how to explain. But for me, that is the most difficult thing to teach, to say, because it's my people. I am Puerto Rican, and this is my people that are doing that. and it hurts.
Pizarro hopes that the Spay-a-thon and all the help U.S. organizations have lent will somehow aid to stabilize the animal population, not just in shelters but on the streets.
We don't want them to live here. We want them to have a home, to have their family.
A family that for hundreds of animals will never come as long as they are on the island.
Puerto Rico's animal welfare is still currently being overlooked by the Humane Society of the U.S. as the spay-a-thon continues. The first round resulted in 5,000 animals being spayed. The next 3 rounds will take place between November and May of 2019. Claudia Perez-Brito, WUFT News.
Whether by plane or by cruise, Puerto Rico has always been popular when it comes to tourism. With its beaches and the flavor of its culture, Puerto Rico doesn't fail to bring joy to those who visit it. However, tourism changed after the devastation caused by Hurricane Maria. One of the main places to visit the island, Old San Juan, was highly affected.
WUFT's Alexis Howard shows us how the tourism industry is recovering after a devastating blow.
Right now, I eat 1 time a day.
As opposed to 3 times a day before Hurricane Maria. This is how Carlos Bonet Vargas, owner of a small book shack in the streets of Old San Juan, reminisces after losing everything as a result of the storm. Even now, a year later, small businesses like Carlos's book stand still find themselves struggling from this natural disaster.
We still hurt because it's about 40, maybe 50% less tourism than before we used to had.
About an hour east of Old San Juan in Fajardo, Luis Mendez, owner of Yokahu Kayaks, recognizes the struggle is very familiar and claims from these 2 business owners didn't seem far-fetched. Walking through the streets of Old San Juan or along the dock of Fajardo's bioluminescent bay, most areas were desolate, not a single soul in sight. Despite the apparent decrease in activity, the governor of the island believes tourism is doing just fine.
Business is back on its feet. Tourism is even higher than it was before the storm.
Contradictions between the experiences of these business owners and what the governor said sparked our curiosity. We needed statistics from the Puerto Rico Tourism Company to see exactly who was right. Carla Campos, the company's director, painted an even different scenario.
No, we are on track to being able to leverage an opportunity. But as I mentioned and cited some of those numbers, we're still in the process of recovering fully.
Despite the fact that tourism may not be at its best, local business owners are hopeful that they will overcome this hurdle and Puerto Rico will soon return to being visitors' favorite Caribbean getaway.
We have beautiful beach, we have beautiful places, gastronomy, good restaurants, etc. So I trust in our island. I trust that tourism will be back.
We Puerto Rican always survive. I have been surviving for years. And always people are coming here because for us, for the people, for the beach, for the food, for the music.
These and many more are all the attributes that make Puerto Rico the island of enchantment. Alexis Howard, WUFT News.
There's a life before and after Hurricane Maria for everyone who experienced the catastrophe in Puerto Rico.
But experiences like this help people come together. The people of Puerto Rico worked together in the aftermath of the hurricane. They cleaned the streets so others could have access to their families, and those who could cook would help feed others who didn't have enough. Little kids were no longer on their iPads. They were outside playing with their neighbors and even helped the adults with cleaning. Puerto Ricans are fighters, and they continue to maintain their faith strong.
Thank you for tuning in tonight.
For more on Life After Maria, please visit www.lifeaftermaria.org.
Have a good night.